maybe just while we're waiting, I'll do acknowledgement of country. Just like to say that me and some of my other Melbourne colleagues here are based on Wurundjeri land. The Wurundjeri people speak the Woiwurrung language, and just acknowledge the land that everyone's on wherever you are, and the elders past and present, and Indigenous linguists who are here today, and emerging leaders. So yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for coming. And this session of Linguistics in the Pub is focused on, I guess, what linguists based in academic institutions can do to support communities who we work with at a distance, and also continue our research collaborations with communities that we can't visit face-to-face anymore, or have visit us face-to-face. But I would very much like to have future get-togethers like this, where we focus more on community-based linguists. Sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. Also, just like to say that we're all learning how to use the technology. So if you have any tips or something's going wrong, let me or Jonathan or Chloe or Andrew or Lauren know, because they're also on the organising committee. So I thought we'd start by the panel just introducing themselves, because I didn't give much details in the announcement about what they work on, which communities they work with, or what institutions they're affiliated with. So I guess we'll just go in alphabetical order. So Claire, would you like to start off?
Sure, yeah, I guess alphabetical order by
last
name rather than first name. Sure, yeah, my name's Claire Bowern. I'm a professor of linguistics at Yale University in the US. I'm originally from Australia. I guess with both Americans and Australians here, you can discuss my accent at leisure and work out which bits are American, which bits are Australian now. I work on language documentation, language change, particularly with Bardi people from Northwest Western Australia and Yolngu people from Eastern Arnhem Land, and very excited to be here today to talk about all of these questions. Thanks.
Thanks. Emiliana, would you like to go next? Oh, I think you're still muted, but.
Hi, my name is Emiliana Cruz, and I work at CSS, Mexico City, and I speak Chatino, and I work with Chatino communities, and we do several things, like from language documentation to pedagogical material making. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Ennever. I'm based at the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. The majority of the work I've been doing for the last 5 years has been in a community kind of close to the Northern Territory and Western Australian border called Bowern, and I work kind of on the side of linguistic or language documentation on the Ngari language. That's the language, for those of you who've heard of Woodberry, just to the west of Woodbury.
Oh, thanks very much, Tom. Bryn, I think you're next in our alphabetical order.
Okay, yeah, I'm Bryn Hauk. I am a freshly minted PhD from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. I'm still in Honolulu right now. And I have been working with speakers of the Tsovatush language, also known as Batsbi. It's a Northeast Caucasian language spoken in the Republic of Georgia.
Thanks, Bryn. Stephen?
Yes, so I'm Stephen Morey from the Department of Languages and Linguistics at La Trobe University in Melbourne, Australia. So I've been doing language documentation and description on what we might call less described and endangered languages belonging to the Tai, which is Tai-Kadai, Singpo and Tangsa Naga and Wancho language groups, which belong under Tibeto-Burman. Which are on the India-Myanmar border, been doing that since the mid-1990s, as well as working on the historical sources of Aboriginal languages here in Victoria, Australia, which also involves working with community members in those communities.
Thanks, Stephen. Tony, I think you're lucky last. Oh, I think you're still muted, sorry.
I'm Tony Woodberry, this time audibly, and I am a professor of linguistics at the University of Texas at Austin, and I do work in documentary and descriptive linguistics on indigenous languages of the Americas, the communities that I've been involved with formerly and hopefully also futurely, Yupik speaking communities in Alaska, and then currently Chatino speaking communities in Oaxaca, Mexico. And I'm also interested in language archiving. So I've been involved with the Archive of Indigenous Languages of Latin America at UT. And I'm also very involved in training students in documentary linguistics, particularly indigenous students from Latin America who are going to be working in their own communities and other communities.
Great. Thanks, Tony. So what we'll do is sort of go around the panel, just with everyone giving a bit of a short comment on 3 different questions. And if we have time at the end, we'll also be taking questions from the audience via the Zoom chat and the YouTube live chat. So we'll just see if we have time when we get 45 minutes in to discuss those other questions. So maybe just hold on to your questions till then. Yeah, so the first question I guess I thought we should address is what kind of projects can we continue to do with communities at a distance? So maybe we'll focus on research projects or projects that have a research, some research outcome at this point, and then we'll talk about supporting language needs in the community in another question. So we'll just use the same order. Claire, if you want to kick it off.
Sure, absolutely. Hopefully we can go reverse alphabetical order sometime maybe to
okay, sure,
to
that's a good idea.
Yeah, so I guess with thinking about the research side of things, I think we'd all rather be working in the communities where you know, we have ties to at the moment, and you know, we have very good reasons why that's not possible. And so thinking about the sorts of things that are possible for us to do, I think there are maybe 3 things that are that could be focused on. So one is the type of work that is doable through Zoom and chat and email and things like that. So that tends to be fairly structured type of field work, translation, sending things back and forth and so on. Obviously, all of these things have a massive proviso that all communities are different and some things are going to be appropriate for some communities and not appropriate for other communities. So that, you know, saying that we can just do field work over Zoom is predicated on good internet connections and so on. But I think that's one possibility. Another possibility is to work on the archival materials that linguists have been collecting for many years. So, you know, we all have collections of previous materials which we may or may not have archived, we may or may not have fully transcribed, we may or may not have put full metadata in and so on. So, and we tend to put that off because going to the field is usually more important. When we can't go to the field, now is an excellent time to get our archival houses in shape. And the third thing, which I think we could focus on, is community-based language materials. So the sort of things that take a while to get set up, like dictionaries or say mobile phone apps or things like that. Again, not appropriate for all communities, may be appropriate for some communities. And so those sorts of skills that take a bit of time to get prototyping and are by definition kind of distance-based. I'm happy to talk more about any of these things, but I also want to leave time for panelists too.
Thanks, Claire. No, that was great. Emiliana, do you want to? Oh, I think you're still muted.
One thing that I find useful for now is WhatsApp, and we in Quiaige, in a lot of communities here in Mexico, they don't have good internet access. So a lot of the issue that we're running into is that if you want to do face-to-face interaction, it's a little bit difficult. So so WhatsApp is being the media that we have been using to be able to communicate. So what is really interesting is that dictionary making has been one of the projects that I've been able to do in a distance, because we have enough people that have been trained on how to document and also how to describe the language. So then when we're asking, for example, like a verb questions, those are really complex, even in a person. But then you already have, like for my case, I already have people being trained on how to think about aspects. And then, so I will send them an audio, and they will respond with another audio. So we kind of like doing this audio back and forth. And with that, we have been able to figure out a lot of things. And so we're kind of moving along with the dictionary entering for the verbs, which sometimes when you are, or me, when I'm in the village, I sometimes avoid verbs because it really it takes a long time to go through verbs. So it seems that this time I do kind of like small chunks of verbs, and I said, how do you say this, or how do you do it? But also I speak the language myself, and the one thing that I find really useful is that even if my intuition, if I think that, oh, this is the word that I need to elicit, and then I will send it to whoever wants to respond to that verb, and I'm capable, to say, oh, you're probably saying this aspect and not the other aspect. So we do this all via WhatsApp, and so yeah. So one issue is internet connection, but just like someone, I forgot your name again. Oh, Claire. Claire was saying is that this is also a really good time to go back to a lot of the documentation that I've done, that I've taken a lot of photos, I've done a lot of interviews, and now I'm transcribing. So it also when you're really busy with doing field work, sometimes it's you're not doing a lot of transcription. So also transcription is something really useful that I, right now I'm able to, have some time to do that. So I will leave it to that.
Oh, thanks very much. Who was next on my list? Tom.
Cool. So I guess one thing I'll pick up on is this kind of idea that any of the types of work that we might try and continue to do, obviously the types of work, the kind of variety is probably compressed a little bit down to the kinds of things that you might be able to do over phone, or in those cases where there's kind of the sufficient internet connection, you might be able to do something a little bit more kind of complex than that. But the thing that kind of I've always been aware of, given the kind of limited capabilities of the internet out in Balgo, has always been this kind of how valuable the field work itself is, and the prioritization of what types of work you do when you get there. And I think even now, with the reduction in types of work, there's probably a good chance to really focus on, well, what's the priority? What's the kind of thing that I probably should most focus on when I do get a chance to chat to the people that are working on this project. And I think part of it's also, again, the types of work just won't be suitable. So things like verbs are immensely complicated, even for Ngardi as well, in person. And I guess I kind of got pulled out of the community of Balgo kind of midway through. And so I had to, dramatically kind of rush to get a few things done, and ask kind of people, well, what things, given the limited time we have left, would like to be done. And that's not always necessarily things that can be done later. And I think one thing that's worked quite well, a dictionary project is also something we're working on at the moment. And the types of things that we could chat over the phone has actually turned out to be a bunch of information that's probably very helpful for things like biographies of speakers. People are very happy to chat over the phone as if it's a regular conversation. So you can do a bit more of that kind of ethnographic work as if it's a normal conversation than interrogating people about their kind of use of pronominal systems. And so those kinds of things are things that you would probably be doing at some point anyway, there in person. but I guess it's more of a personable thing to be doing on the phone, to be discussing kind of wider kind of, I guess, ethno-linguistic kind of aspects of your work than just purely the kind of linguistic data that you're trying to kind of write up in your research project.
Thanks, Tom. Bryn, would you like to make a few remarks?
Yeah, thank you. So we're answering this question, right? So what kinds of projects can be done at a distance at this point? And I think that I think Claire's answer was really good, like covering all the bases there, that you can do the structured field work, you can utilize the documentations that we have and put our archives in order, and we can focus on community-based language materials. Those are the points that I wanted to bring up with respect to this question. So instead of rehashing that, I've got one thing that's a little bit contrarian and then one thing a little bit more optimistic. So my contrarian point is to just push back on the question in general and ask, why do we think we need to be doing projects right now? We're in a global crisis, and the communities we work with, they were already vulnerable before this started. They've got additional concerns right now. There's public health concerns, there's economic concerns. Even if the virus hasn't reached their community, I'm sure economically they've been impacted as well. So the kind of linguistic research questions we might have, even though we consider them important for science, you know, like now is a very difficult time to be asking for that out of a community. Yeah, and I know that we love our consultants and we love the work we do and we really want to keep doing it, but I think it's worth taking a step back and asking, like, is it the ethical thing to do to even be doing these projects at all? And I know that we have a question about ethics again later, so I'll leave the rest of my comments for that portion. But the kind of more optimistic thing I wanted to return to was the point that Claire made and a couple of you have made about using the documentation that we already have. I think it's not just what we're defaulting to because we have no other option. I think this is a really positive thing that might come out of this, where we're going to put our documentation to the test, and we're going to find out, you know, we've been doing this for a few decades, becoming this robust language documentation field. We're going to find out where the holes are, where our documentations have served us well and where they haven't. And I would love, like in a couple of years, I would love to see, you know, edited volumes and conferences on topics like lessons from deploying documentation in a time of crisis. I think that would be a positive direction to like deliberately explore right now.
Thanks, Ben. That's great. Stephen?
Yeah, well, so the question was, what kind of projects can be done at a distance? And the short answer is probably too many. And in my experience, and just following up on what Bryn just said, so I have a lot of Facebook contacts in India and Myanmar. And the number of people that are wanting to engage in discussions that are related to language has definitely significantly increased in the last 6 weeks, to the point that while I don't have to get up off this couch all that often, it is becoming quite exhausting. So I thought what might be useful here is just to talk about a couple of experiences that I've had with some specific projects. So one is that I'm writing a joint article with Banwang Losu, who is a member of the Wancho community. This is a language spoken on the India-Myanmar border belonging to the Northern Naga group. He's created his own script for this language, which is fully phonemic, and we have sat together over the years from time to time. But writing this article jointly means sending it backwards and forwards. Now, so far that's not an issue, but we do our discussions in different ways. We do them by email, we do them by Facebook, and in order for it to work on Facebook, then all the fonts have to be working correctly, which is another issue I could talk about. But right at the moment, Banwang has finally been allowed to return home from the university where he was studying in central India to his home village. That's a 3-day bus trip. So while he's on the bus, he can't operate his laptop. So I'm sending him, he's got nothing else to do except look at his mobile phone as often as possible. I'm sending him, I make JPEG files of a particular page and say, what do you think about this? Can we discuss this? Second thing that I wanted to mention was a group discussion that we got going a couple of weeks ago, which is leading to dozens of comments every day on Facebook about one of the Tangsa language varieties, the Lochang, and how it should be written. And because these people are on both sides of the Myanmar, India-Burma border, they can't meet up with each other. They haven't been able to meet up with each other for 50 years. Setting up a Facebook group where they can start talking to each other about these issues is actually something we should have done a long time ago, but people have more time, it seems, to do that at the moment. But how to actually work through a discussion about orthography development with people who come from very different traditions. I mean, they all speak the same language, but in terms of writing, they're accustomed to different traditions on the Burmese side from the Indian side. And that is proving to be an interesting challenge, and one which is going on as we speak, because they're chatting on Facebook right now and I can't respond to them. So yeah, so that is, and I guess the other thing that has been able to be done and which is important is me talking with software developers, people in the US and in Europe who are helping to make the various fonts and other things that need to work in order for Unicode to work on the various devices that people use. And that is definitely something that's going on, but then you need to get back to the community and say, is this okay for your particular script? And there are lots of them. I could go on about this for some time, but I think I'll leave it there for now.
Thanks, Stephen. Tony, would you like to add something?
There's not much I can add, but oops. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, good. Okay. So one thing I just wanted to just point out is that, you know, when I look at the set of things that I can and can't do, there really is just a complete and very wide range of things. So among things I can't do, I was planning to go to a community called San Marcos Zacatepec, where a variety of Chetino that is only spoken by very, very elderly people is spoken. And two people that I'm working with there, both in their 70s, are doing different kinds of documentation work. One is going around and videotaping her neighbors, and the other is transcribing some of the recorded materials that we have in a way that he has of writing the language. And that basically needs just lots and lots of attention. There's no WhatsApp, there's no good connectivity to their, or at least to that generation there. And it's just not gonna happen. I can't go there this summer, and we're gonna just have to let things ride for a while. And I feel really bad about that, because they always told me, you're never here enough. And you know, this just makes that worse. And on the other hand, we, the group of us who've been working on Chetino languages are writing a book on tone in Chetino. Chetino languages have very complicated tone. And for that, there's just so much opportunity to do things. And I got such a wonderful introduction to fieldwork at a distance from Emiliana last week, when we were working on one of the papers on one of the varieties of Chetino, and Emiliana was WhatsApping and getting beautiful WhatsApp clips of different things that we were wondering about with crazy tone sandhi phenomena. And it just worked great, and there was time to do it. One of the things that I really worry about, and that hasn't been talked about, I think, very much here, is the problem of career stages. So at different career stages, you have different ranges of opportunity, portfolios of possibilities. If you're just starting out, this is a very, very, very hard time. And this is something that I've been seeing with our first, second, and third year graduate students who really have don't have lots of stuff that they haven't transcribed yet, or that they haven't figured out yet, just tons and tons of stuff to archive and so on. So one of the things that I can concretely recommend at that stage is just to dig into archives, try to find as much as you can. Remember that one of the ethical principles of the work that we do is to be very well informed. And just use this time to try to dig into things that you never thought you had time to get into. And that's going to be different in everybody's situation. But I think it's a way to get through some of these months, and maybe even more than months, with a feeling that we're accomplishing something.
Thanks, Tony. I knew you would have something to say. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I think, I guess my attempts to separate the discussion into 3 questions, it's interesting how that failed, because trying to separate our sort of projects focused on research from our projects focused on community language needs and language goals from the ethics of doing stuff at a distance, you know, you can't completely separate all those things. And I think Tony's point also about thinking about these people who have just started their PhDs and aren't in the position that we are in, where we hopefully already have some good relationships with people in the community, which we can continue to communicate with them. And we also have materials, you know, we can work on. And I think Bryn's point was also really important, because I think in Australia, I guess the initial concerns about the pandemic have passed as things have improved a lot. And so I think we're forgetting what it was like at the start, you know, all the upheavals in people's lives, and all the anxiety and concern, and that you can't necessarily do anything. Not just people in communities who are experiencing a lot of difficulties, but also academics can't necessarily do anything in that situation. Maybe we should go around one more time, even though some people have addressed questions 2 and 3, and just have a bit more of a focus on, I guess, what we can do for communities that's not so much focused on research. And I guess what the ethical aspects of doing stuff online. I would just like to apologize to a couple of people who probably joined late and accidentally were recorded onto YouTube Live. I'm very sorry about that. If you want to get in touch with me, we may be able to edit the video so that in future you can't be seen. Maybe I'll just mix you guys up rather than go backwards and make Tony talk straight away.
Yeah.
Maybe Tom, would you like to start off the second discussion? I can just recap what
Yeah, no, that's right.
topic wasn't clear.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So I might pick up on things that things that I've done, at least. I don't know what things other people might have kind of encountered. Like you were saying, things in Australia, I think probably very different based on each community, not to mention, you know, the rest of the world, of course. So I guess people's livelihoods in Balgo, at least, are still pretty disrupted. So the kind of one major external income stream that people have was kind of work done through the art center. And that was definitely like a daily practice for people to come in and be doing painting. And the art center was pretty good in terms of making a transition to selling some of that online, even in previous years. And I guess they're now entirely relying on it. I'm pretty sure that the art center coordinators aren't even back in Balgo yet. Some of them kind of went back home when that kind of all started. But I guess since then, there's still been quite a bit of an opportunity to promote, I guess, the existing kind of sets of artworks that many of the people in the community have kind of previously produced and are online in galleries. And so one thing that I've kind of been helping out a little bit with is kind of promoting, I guess, the kind of linguistic diversity of the country, both the country in which people are painting and also the kind of linguistic repertoires of people in community. So that's kind of involved a couple of short kind of transcribing and kind of subtitling a bunch of older videos that we had, some videos that we made in a rush as we were leaving, kind of explaining why people weren't going to be painting for a while, but people really trying to kind of promote their existing work online. So we kind of did that in a rush as things were kind of shutting down. And I guess this is kind of our like one attempt to get kind of as much kind of promotional material out to kind of steady people through this period, because the art sector, this is also something that people aren't going to be buying generally, I don't think, kind of artworks during a time of kind of financial upheaval for people. So this is kind of one very specific way in Balgo, but I guess it just kind of speaks to the fact that each community will have their own avenues in which you can do something to help out with, I guess.
Thanks, Tom. That was great. Bryn, would you like to chat next?
Sure, yeah, I can go next. So yeah, how can we still support the language needs of the community? I think that this question, I really liked thinking about it the last few days. I think it really highlights the importance of taking this opportunity to decolonize linguistics, especially field linguistics, because we're a community-driven and a community-based project obviously is so much easier to support at a distance. And so I think this is a great time to reflect on the ways that we can restructure the way we do field work, so that in future situations like this, if we know that we're going to have to be away from our field communities for longer periods of time, they already have the recording equipment they need. They've already been trained. They already know what their goals are and what kind of data they want to collect. And it really requires potentially minimum outside input. Yeah, so other ways we can support those communities is obviously, as Tom was saying, use the materials that you already have. I wanted to return to the ethics question a little bit too, just because, so like all of this applies only to a subset of communities. Like we said before, disclaimer, if you're working with a community that doesn't have internet access or has spotty internet access, some of these issues don't apply. You simply just can't do the work at a distance. But for those that do have access to more reliable internet, and where you might be interested in moving into doing like linguistic elicitation on a platform like Zoom or Google Hangouts, Skype, all of them are basically the same in terms of their terms of service. I just wanted to point out that I don't think our IRBs at this point are set up to handle that ethics question very well, because the terms of service are technically legally binding documents that I haven't read. I know my consultants haven't read them and probably can't read them if it's only available in English or in a few major languages. And I don't think the IRB has read them. And they get updated so often, it would be impractical to try to work with those terms of service. But I don't think any of us want to be in a position where we're putting our participants on a service where they're in like entering into a legal agreement that they're not fully aware of. That's not properly consenting our consultants. And I think the privacy issues with these softwares are huge, and really need to be considered a little bit more deeply before we use them. My optimistic note on this is that that doesn't mean we can't use Zoom or Skype or any of these. Most of the privacy issues come up when you push the record button. So if you use a different recording method, a lot of the data transfer issues don't apply. And so you can download other programs onto your desktop that will do screen capture, or you could even improve the quality of your data and just independently set up a video camera and your own recorder in your room, capture your end of it. If your consultant happens to have another video recorder and audio recorder, they can set it up too, and you're going to get better data that way. That's not, going into the Zoom office where anybody in Zoom can listen to it and decide how they can make profits off that data. And I don't think any of us want that. If we wouldn't invite the workers of Zoom to join us in our documentation projects, we shouldn't be using the record button on Zoom, I guess is the main point of that ethics question.
Thanks, Bryn. No, that's a really good point, which I have to admit I hadn't thought about that much. Emiliana, would you like to comment next?
Yes. So I want to talk about what I was doing before this pandemic thing came. And I was working with a group of young people in Kiaihe. And I was like teaching them linguistics and working with them with various projects. And once so I was in Texas working with Tony, in this book, and I had to come back to Mexico. And so the idea of like even writing or thinking about writing an academic paper to me was absolutely not something that I could do at the moment, because I felt that the world was just in that, we were going through a lot, and so I couldn't really think about doing these papers that a lot of these papers didn't make sense to me. And what I thought was, how can I actually make connect to what we were doing with the community, with these young people, and also their community closed, so no one could have access to to go in or out. So they but they they have the telephone and WhatsApp. So then I thought, well, why don't we continue working? And so I started creating a literacy project with them, where each of them, they will bring their relatives or friends or something, and invite them to participate in the literacy project. So we had different groups with a group for each person. So then that person, so even them, they wouldn't be in contact. It would be all done through the phone. So then I work with this story weaver company that they have stories in different languages. And so we had another group of young people that they translated books into Chatino. So then those were the students and the people that they already know how to write Chatino. We were creating materials for the literacy project. So then in the literacy project, what we would do is that I will send them the chat groups, one book a week. And then that each person will be in charge of working with individuals of how to read the book. So then when whoever was participating, the child who was interested in participating, they will call me and they will read the book, and then they will be recorded. And they really like to get their videos back and see themselves reading Chatino. So then we have been doing this so that I will be super busy getting phone calls from children and reading. So now we have this group, this group is really popular now. It's growing, and now I need more people to help me with it. But so that part, I thought it was really important. And then also I've been teaching, people have been really interested in learning more about the tones. So we do a lot of the verb paradigms that I was explaining earlier. I mean, I don't just, call people and, give me a paradigm. No, it's about teaching. This is not about just getting information, but also I speak Chatino. And for me, working with these young people and having them to get into the level where we get into, when we discuss in linguistics classrooms, so they are interested in doing that. So I teach them about tones. I teach them about difficult things. That way they said, oh wow, our language is so interesting. So I have that group of young people. So I'm doing also another project with the same group of young people that before I left, I took a video for each of the participants. And the question was, what Chatino means to me? Why is it that I love speaking Chatino, and what I want, a message to the new generation. So then I had the time to work and transcribe the videos, and I made short videos, and I will upload them on YouTube, and I will send them the links to YouTube, and that way they will be sending it to the entire village. And so we have a really active young people who are interested in talking about their language and about their culture. So yeah, so that's what I feel that it's important now, and that young people are responding to it. And I think that's some of the examples of the things that I've been doing during this time, in terms of how I'm supporting or continuing the project that I started in person, but now we have moved it into kind of more in a distance.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Emiliana. That was really interesting. I'm just aware that we've got to 10:45, which was when we were meant to finish. But I would like to hear from the other three panelists. but we won't have time to take questions via Zoom chat and YouTube live chat. So what I was thinking people could do, if you have some interesting questions for people to discuss when you get into the breakout rooms, maybe you could send them around now. So basically sort of more like discussion questions rather than questions for the panel. And then when we get into the breakout rooms, we can use them as discussion questions. So yeah, send them around to the whole group now if you have some interesting questions or issues. And then, yeah, Stephen and Tony and Claire, if maybe we could just hear a very short comment from you guys each. Stephen, if you want to go first.
Okay, so I was going to give a couple of examples of things that are possible with community support. I was going to mention that but I will mention very briefly that in Northeast India, as far as I'm concerned, a very important thing is to support not only members of small language communities, but also those people who, from the general community of the Northeast, who are studying linguistics. And so this is work we've been doing through the Northeast Indian Linguistics Society for 15 or more years now. And one of the things I'm doing today and tomorrow is I'm doing a weekly sort of mini lecture for the students at Gauhati University who currently have no access to teaching or very little. And then we have a Facebook discussion every Friday afternoon, and we're going to be talking about gender categories tomorrow. But the particular thing in the language community that I wanted to talk about, the thing that we have started to make some progress on, is the question of being able to write the scripts that the traditional Thai scripts of Northeast India using on the internet, effectively on Facebook and on mobile phones. This is what people want to be able to do. Endangered scripts are going to survive if people can use them on these devices. But the Unicode Committee, in its wisdom, set them up in such a way that you basically need to have the latest devices and more knowledge of computing than I have in order to make them work. That's the short version of the story. So trying to get that happening means talking to people in California, means talking to people in London, means talking to people in India. It's very hard to find a time when it's possible to talk to all of those. That isn't 4 o'clock in the morning for me. And this is work that can be ongoing. You can never get those people physically together anyway. So this is the opportunity, in a sense, to bring together people who would never get together physically, but can get together electronically. So there's a lot more that I could say, but given time, I think I'll leave it there and look forward to the small group discussion shortly.
Oh, thanks, Stephen. Tony, if you'd like to put your 2 cents worth in.
Okay, just be very quick. I noticed that Bryn mentioned ethics boards, what we opaquely call IRBs in the United States. And just on the one hand, their default position on ethics is shut everything down, just don't. And that makes a lot of sense if you think of working with elderly people, bringing diseases into communities. But at the same time, 2 of my students who were doing research at the time in their own communities get a message from our IRB saying, come home immediately. In other words, asking them to leave their COVID-free home environment and come to COVID-infested United States and stop their field work. I think we have to just be, you know, obviously that's very kind of ludicrous, but we have to really think about this in a very kind of fresh way and not just always consider that shutting everything down necessarily is the most ethical thing to do, even in goofy cases like the one I mentioned, but also in cases where you have people who feel that they have only a few more years of life left and they want to use that time in a way that is most beneficial, and what kinds of accommodations you can make. Anyway, I don't have any answers to that, but I just wanted to raise that question. And then I also wanted to just say, just kind of based on the different stories that people have been telling here, that perhaps one of the most important ethical principles to think about during this whole period is being in touch, staying in touch, always communicating, and making the best of the communication that we are capable of, and which we can facilitate in an amazing level of a number of different ways these days. So that's what I have to say.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Claire, if you want to finish off the discussion.
Sure, yeah. Couple of points related to ethics and so on. So our IRB ethics board at Yale has suspended all human subjects research at the moment, unless it can be done online. So no trips, no baby labs, anything like that. And so their default has been that online is better than in person for now. And now there's a committee to restart things as it becomes possible. Maybe I should just say that I've been doing remote-ish work for a number of years. I haven't been back to One On Point for quite a few years now. My first trip back in a number of years was going to be this fall, so we're figuring out other ways to do that. Just a very last ethics, or also ethics point related to what Bryn said earlier about is now the right time to do language work when there are so many other types of question. I think this is a really good question, and I think there are at least for some communities two reasons why yes, now is a good time to continue language research. One is the link between language and well-being, and in the current situations, well-being is it's tricky to live in a pandemic, put it that way. And so these well-being questions and questions around stress and mental health and so on look very different in different communities, but are still very relevant, and especially relevant in some places. Another reason is that for a number of communities, work with linguists is a source of income at a time when other sources of income may have dried up, and so we may be a source of support beyond language to communities. Let me leave it there, but very happy to continue these discussions in the small groups as well.
Thanks, Claire. I like the way everyone's really emphasized the relationships that we have with our research partners in distant communities, and how that's at the heart of our work, and that's what we need to, I guess, think about in this kind of a situation. I'd just like to thank all the panelists for coming and for your really interesting and thought-provoking contributions. Hopefully we can have more conversations like this at